So, hello everyone. What we're going to be doing today is ripping apart Notion's onboarding experience. And so this is going to be really cool. We're going to quickly go through the website and then just dive right into the onboarding experience and see what they've done well, what they could have done better, and not sugarcoat anything over this. So, Aazar, do you want to go first in terms of just the overview of the homepage?
Well, to be very honest, when I first came in, I see that Notion has a huge brand value already. But I think when I started with the hero image, they say all-in-one workspace, and then they say write, plan, collaborate, get organized. Notion is all you need in one tool. So it looks like a very heavy platform with a lot of features. And then I don't get it, like in the first space, what is all-in-one workspace means. But then we go down, we see notes and docs, knowledge base, task and projects and database. So it seems like some kind of wiki there. And so then I get, if I wouldn't have known about Notion at all, then I would have just missed the hero headline. So I don't know if this is a great hero image. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think in terms of all-in-one workspace, what they've done really well, for me at least, is they've broken it down by persona. And so there's different areas where I can see like, oh, okay, if I'm just trying to get a document, that's great. I'm that person and can learn more about that particular part of the product and everything else here. The one thing I will say that they have not done well at all is the get starting button. I had to reread this part again because it was literally just blended into the background until I actually clicked here. So it's really hard to see where I'm supposed to enter my email to get started. And even the get started button, it's not actually that clear. So my recommendation just for the homepage is really make sure that this is actually going to stand out if this is the main action you want people to take. So with that being said, what I am going to be doing now is signing up, and we're going to dive right into this onboarding experience. So while I'm kind of going through this, I wanted to take a little step back and just go into what we're really up to here. So in onboarding experience, there's really three things. If you want to improve it, that you have to do. The first one is really build that straight line, which is a straight line to really just help your user get a strike in the product. So that first experience has to be incredible. And if there's items in this onboarding flow for Notion that we see, they don't actually add any value, we're going to really mention that and really kind of tear those items apart. Now, for the conversational bumper, that's really just seeing like, okay, how are they reaching out to us if we don't do certain steps or not? So for this part, we can't dive into that. But for this one, we're really going to be diving into building that straight line onboarding experience, because that is what's really going to show us how they can help users become more successful. So I just signed up so far. Now they're asking me for the privacy and data collection. So this is pretty new. I actually haven't seen this before in an onboarding flow. What are your thoughts, Aazar?
Well, I think it's nice of them that they are already informing us. Since the GDPR, this is a main concern, especially it's a tool for everybody. So I like the fact that they are telling us already, but I don't think this could be in the first line. I would put it extremely at the end. Like for example, in full story, when you go through the whole thing, at the end they say, hey, just a heads up, we do respect your privacy. Click here to agree. So I think that the first, for me, it's a bit confusing because I want to know the value first, and I want to go directly in and then get to know about the privacy question. But this is how they want to do it, and so they are pretty strong on this privacy. Maybe they've got some, I don't know, some legal notes out there, so that's why they said, okay, let's put it right away.
Yeah, and I'd also kind of challenge if there is other workarounds for this. I know for a lot of companies, even in Europe too, they can, whenever people sign up for the product, they put in their email and then they check a box. And so that could completely get rid of this entire step. So whether that's legal or not, GDRP, we're probably not the best experts. Actually, that's not true. You are the expert. So let's hear your thoughts on that, because your previous company, I almost forgot, was to do with GDRP.
Yeah, so in GDPR, according to GDPR, they're the best company right now in SaaS because they are telling every tool they use in-app. And there is a legal reason that's called legitimate interest, which is basically improvement of performance of the app, which is a legitimate interest. and they're taking consent as well, which are two legal bases, and they are covering those two legal bases here. So according to GDPR, lawyers gonna love them.
How about the users?
Well, we still haven't come up with the cookie privacy, right? So if it's good to have or not. So I think
Yeah,
somebody has to innovate the cookie privacy thing so that everybody gets to know about it.
definitely. All right, so we've signed up so far, and now it's saying welcome. First things first, create a profile to personalize how you'll appear to collaborators. So before I even start reading all of this, one thing I really like here is that they're using a progress bar really well. And so right now they're setting the expectation saying, you know, there's 5 steps here, you're on step 2. And then when I'm going through it, it's just so much more motivating to see like, all right, this isn't actually as bad as it seems. So let me just dive into here. So they're asking questions about how did you find out about Notion? Let's just say social media. What best describes what you do? Who you use Notion with?
Yeah.
Let's be nice and lonely here. Or should we go big or go home, see if they reach out?
Yeah, but just a minute on there. I think
Yeah.
How did you find out about Notion? It's very much in Notion's interest to know
Yeah.
how people are finding out, and even though it might not be 100% correct, I don't know if this should be part of in-app first-time registration. I want to remove as much as friction, but I am pretty sure they have already removed friction and they thought about, hey, since we are offering free product, why not we ask questions already, and so that we can customize and personalize later on. So the first question, I'm a bit skeptical. I don't know what's the best answer to that, but since Notion is for everybody, I think it makes sense for them. They must have tried it.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of how do you find out about Notion, the question is just for me, I'm like, I can tell a lot of those things from analytics. And so is that really necessary? Like maybe if it's for word of mouth, it'd be a little bit trickier to do that. But I'd really question if it is going to be that pivotal for the marketing team to have that stat of saying, you know, 30% of people came from social media. It's verified. And we're seeing that in Google Analytics too. Now we know. It's like, is that really helpful? Or I almost feel like people just put random stuff here just to kind of blow through the steps. So
Yeah.
it might not actually be that useful.
One more thing, I don't know if it's a mandatory step. Do you see that there's no static in there? Is it required or not? Can I remove it or not? Now you just clicked on it, so we can't unclick it. But I think it would have been interesting to see that if I don't unclick it, would I still be able to go through it or not?
Yeah, that's a good point too. If it was actually necessary. So we're done with this step, but in terms of the like overall straight line onboarding kind of experience, a lot of this stuff would kind of fall under the category of maybe not completely necessary. However, with that being said, some of these, depending on like what role you're in, what they could really do to personalize the experience, back to that conversational bumper, is telling me like, okay, if I sign up as a product manager, how is this going to help me my career, and send me examples or templates on how to actually do that. So it can actually be super useful and worthwhile to ask. It just depends what you're doing with that data, in my opinion. So we're going to head on to step 3 here, workspace name. And so it's already selected one for me. So I like that. It just picked my name. Now, if I'm a company, I'm probably going to change that to share with other people, but that's really not that bad. The workspace URL, this is optional. I love this, okay? Because so many companies, if you have a product like this where it goes on a specific subdomain or something like that, it's a pain in the butt to kind of get people to create what that domain will look like, because people overthink it. And oftentimes a lot of companies will say, once you pick this, you'll never be able to change it again, which is always the most reassuring thing you can see. It's like, oh, you got to think about this a lot more. And so I give full kudos for Notion on this one. And then allowed email domains. So that's interesting. That's also optional too, which I like. And so, Laura, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it's nice to have that they have this kind of specific URL. I would have loved it if they have already picked my name and automatically put it in the URL. You know,
Yeah.
so they've been like saving me time, saving me energy to type again. I like the allowed email domains as well. So which means that any other domain which is not my workspace, they would not be able to see it. And so this tells me that my data can be private. I think they would have it would have been nice if they would have just stressed under the tooltip on the field that it would be only for, but it's pretty obvious anyway. Yeah, that's all. And they also on top say you can always create another workspace later, which means that I don't have to worry about if I make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so reassuring, especially for, I mean, a lot of other companies, they always say, you can't change this. And it's like, oh my gosh, it seems like a bigger deal than it is. The only other thing I'd add here too is just in terms of the call to action, like I have white on white and it's really kind of tricky to see like, okay, what should I do? And so maybe that's just me having visual problems here, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who found it a little hard to see the call to action on both of these screens. And so I'm just going to go to step 4 here. And do you have anything to import? So I'm going to take a guess here and say that this is going to be one of the steps that they've thought a lot about in terms of what it really takes to set up a successful user. Because if someone is starting and they're trying to use Notion as the all-in-one workplace, why would you ever start from scratch? And so this is really, really smart. I like it. So for the purposes of this demo, I'm not actually going to do these, so I'm going to skip it, but I do like the idea of this. And before I kind of go on, is there anything you wanted to add to this, Aazar?
Yeah, so what I love about this is the best hook for them. So, and this is a good PQL moment as well, if you know that.
Yeah.
Like you import something and then you know that the lead which is coming in is actually much more serious because they're connecting the data. So for them it's good, and for the user it's good because they might get PQL related information, which is much more powerful. Maybe if they connect Evernote, they get Evernote tips. If they get to Google Docs, they will get the Google Docs list. So it's just amazing for that. And also, like for example, on the left side, you see on the Evernote, they say get $5 credit on import. So they are giving something in return if you import it. So which is amazing. On the right side, there are tooltips which are in the question mark. So they also try to explain you how to actually do it. Can you hover over there? Maybe you find some more information.
For Trello? That's
no,
actually
for Google Docs, there's a question mark there.
Oh, yeah. It just says learn how to import.
Okay, got it. So they teach you how to do that later on. So this is also very interesting. What I'm still not very sure about is the mascot on the left side. I don't know how does that help in the onboarding actually.
Yeah.
They just want to
like,
help.
It doesn't add much value. But at the same time, it's not that distracting. It's also just like, well, what could you do with this? I've seen there was this one example. I'm going to butcher it describing it, but essentially, whenever you're like filling out your little form, it would just have like your name, and then whenever it went over, you're filling in your password, the little like sloth would like kind of put his hands over, and then like, you'd click show password and like kind of look, and it was hilarious. And I thought it really just added a really great brand play for that business. And so this is something where it's like, if you are going to use a character here, make it interesting and use it. But right now it's kind of being underutilized in my opinion. So I think that's pretty much it for this step. We're going to go on to the last one. And so they're just asking us to download, whether it's on iOS, Android, desktop, or the web clipper. So I'm going to
wait. I want to quickly mention this. So what I love about this part
it did do something.
You know, like they show you how it would look like, the promised land, right? So this forces me to be very curious about the next point. So I think on the mobile, how it would look, on the desktop, how it would look, on the web clipper, how it would look, and it says add to my links on the right side. I just think that it's motivating me, you know, the mode framework that you always keep talking about. I think it's motivating me, and also that the mascot also gives you the direction to, you know, these are the things that you should do. It's just again another PQL moment where they say, hey, if you download this, then you're a much serious user, and for them it's better to understand as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. Thanks for bringing that up, because it is good to see, like, here is all the different ways this could look like. However, it might be interesting to see, like, well, like, is it necessary to kind of go through this right now? Or would it just be better to, if you did, let's say, do the import, just go straight in and get started and start using the platform? Because I don't know, maybe it's something that would be better suited for that second or third time user to really download the app. Whereas if I'm just getting started, do I really need to download the app? Okay. Could I just actually go in here and actually start exploring the product and kind of going through a lot of these items. So immediately when I'm looking at the product, one of the things now that I've finally got into it that they've done really well is I call this like an empty state, which is just showing me like, okay, here is exactly what I need to do in order to get started. And the best part is they're actually using their own product to do this. And so I think that's really nifty for them. And so well done for Notion on this part. But now that I'm in the product, it definitely feels a lot more familiar. It doesn't feel overwhelming because
Mhm.
they're not throwing too much at me.
Yeah. So the one thing that you already missed, which we really like, preach about, is tooltips at User Pilot, and you completely miss that as a user. So I was like, maybe tooltip in the sign up flow and the welcome flow doesn't make sense because people just ignore it. So that's one thing I saw. I love the checklist. Checklist is always improving user activation. If you see on the left side, there's a workspace. They already show you product related workspace. So this is
Right.
all interesting. So now I think once you go to the checklist, you will just learn more and more and more about it. So maybe we can just go further. And one thing that I see that they have personalized the use case, but they don't say welcome Wes. This is your first product management wiki, something like that. But on the
Yeah.
left side, they show me. So again, which is valuable at the same time.
Yeah, but I felt like whenever they have these workspaces, it really is like based on that product manager role that I picked, which I
Exactly.
love because it's really showing me like, okay, here's exactly what I should care about. If I do go into like, let's say the product wiki, I can actually use the template, go through like, oh, OKRs and start exploring something new. And so I love this. And so this gets all my points just because it is. They asked me that question. I was challenging it when I was going through the onboarding, and boom, as soon as I'm in the product, they're making use of that. I was expecting something like an email, which maybe that's coming. But in the product experience, this is something that I would probably even bring more to the forefront, which even if it was highlighted or something like that, that would be really great to just add a little bit more attention to that
Yeah.
because that for me just made it. I really see that this has been a well thought out onboarding experience. And so I guess to recap, what are the main points you want to drive home?
So one thing is that they might want to work on their value proposition by saying all-in-one tool. That's one thing. I love the personalization part where they already show the product management side. I love the checklist. We promote checklists as user pilot, so it does improve user activation. I love the fact that they were asking those questions that were very relevant to me, and yeah, and so these are the 3 points from my side which I think are relevant and might be useful for them and for the viewers to look at it. But I do recommend that use checklist or some kind of attention on the left side where you have a product management kind of a checklist or product management kind of a use case based attention seeking workspace that they want to show it, and you can also use it on your own product as well where you do drive some attention. One thing last I want to say that they know that in their app it's a lot of hard work for somebody to create those roadmap and user research. So they already give those templates, which again activates the user further and goes to that bowling alley framework that you talked about. And I think I love that part. Then it reduces the friction in mind that, oh my God, I don't have to import from the beginning.
Yeah.
There is something that I can already start using. Yeah. So these are the basic thoughts from my side.
Yeah, no, I think for me, the best part of it was that one question they asked me about what is my role, and maybe even I don't know if you would even want to recommend going more specific, so it's even more relevant to someone, or maybe kind of labeling it by job to be done, or like what is the main pain point or problem you're trying to solve, and then have the templates based on that. So I think there's a lot of ways you could tweak it, but I just love, I really love how they brought it into the product and gave me those templates because my curiosity is going to get the best of me. I'm going to see that and look at like OKRs and all those other things that I love and just learn about that. And so I think that is such a great way to pique someone's curiosity and then give them the tool to really explore on their own. It's kind of like a book and you're learning at the same time, and then you can eventually use it with your team. So that part was really well done. The one part, though, that I found interesting that they didn't actually utilize is I had 100 employees, and there was nothing about that, like adding a coworker or anything else. And I know from experience with a lot of other SaaS companies that adding invite your coworkers is such a big activation lever, because once you have more people on board, it just becomes more of a snowball effect within the organization to grow. So that was a missed opportunity. I would also challenge the apps and downloading all that content, because if this is a first time user, I want to see what the product is like and I want to get in there. And if I could have got to that point where I see like that product wiki or something useful based on what I have selected so far on onboarding flow, I'm hooked. And eventually, yes, I will start using and downloading those other apps and really making better value of the product once I understand what it's all about and why I should do that. So there's a little bit of motivation at the beginning when I signed up. That's a big ask. And so I'd recommend moving that to maybe even like a second or third time login user and just get people as quickly as possible to that straight line experience. We're going to strike out and see all the value here and then have a good reason to come back. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Hope you found this useful. And we'd love to hear your comments below.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.